So in the past, I found that many of my yeses weren't intentional. I would say yes to people who seemed to be for me, only to realize that they weren't truly in my corner. One example of this was a relationship with a friend who repeatedly betrayed my trust. And at first, I gave her the benefit of the doubt. And when I confronted her about this, she finally admitted it and apologized. And against my better judgment, I gave her another chance. Hello, bold becomers, and welcome back to the podcast where we explore how to embrace godly authenticity and live with shine. I'm Cara Janae, your guide on this journey, and today we're diving into the second episode of our Choosing Your Yes series, Cultivating Your Yes, moving from acknowledgement to accountability. Let me start with a question. How often do you reflect on the yeses you've given in the past and use the lessons from them to shape your future? Today, we're going to be exploring a critical principle that I believe is important to our shine, and it is a part of the shine method. It's called Include the Lessons, and it is the I in the shine method. This principle allows us to look deeper into our past decisions, but not with judgment, but more so with curiosity and reflection, so that we can gain an elevated and aligned perspective into what we should be saying yes to as we move forward towards God's purpose for our lives. But before we get started, let me just start off with a story about how I learned this lesson the hard way. So in the past, I found that many of my yeses weren't intentional. I would say yes to people who seemed to be for me, only to realize that they weren't truly in my corner. One example of this was a relationship with a friend who repeatedly betrayed my trust. And at first, I gave her the benefit of the doubt. I tried to look past some of the information that was getting back to me from other people that I trusted, that she was spreading falsehoods about me. And when I confronted her about this, she finally admitted it and apologized. And against my better judgment, I gave her another chance. Now, before you judge me, please understand, y'all, I am one who believes in the good in everyone. And so I wanted to believe that this person was truly a friend. But as you can probably guess, she didn't change. She continued to spread untruths about me, and I was left feeling hurt and betrayed all over again. For me, that experience, it could have made me bitter and guarded, but instead, God used it to teach me a very powerful lesson. That if I keep saying yes without boundaries, then I'll continue to be taken advantage of. And that situation taught me to cultivate a more intentional yes. A yes that reflects my values, my purpose, and the lessons that I've learned. That's what today's episode is all about. Cultivating your yes by including your lessons. Because here's the truth, bold becomer. God is always working things together for your good. The question is, are you noticing those lessons? And are you taking them with you as you move forward? So let's set the stage today by diving into today's bold declaration. If you'd like, you can repeat this after me or just hold it close in your heart. I am cultivating my yes. I approach this daily opportunity and challenge with grace, curiosity, and patience. I am learning to incorporate intentional living by assessing how the yeses of yesterday impact my today and tomorrow. I am empowered by God to choose my yes with care, while learning to improve my yes as I take the lessons with me. As I integrate the lessons I've learned, I'm creating a yes that is more attuned and aligned with what God has for my life. Today, I boldly declare, I am cultivating an elevated and aligned yes. In today's episode, we're going to be exploring why we often fail to reflect on our past yeses and the consequences of missing those lessons. We'll also discuss how to move from acknowledgement to accountability by including your lessons. And finally, we're going to be talking about some practical steps to help you cultivate a yes that aligns with your purpose. Let's get started. Why do people fail to reflect on their past decisions? So, one of the reasons why people may fail to reflect on their past yeses is because they're taking things way too personally. And when I say that, what I mean is that instead of them seeing experiences as something that's happening for them, they tend to look through the lens that everything is happening to them. And this is one particular viewpoint that only further leads you away from being introspective and reflective when it comes to taking the lessons from your past yes. Another reason is because they are making generalizations about themselves or about the situation that only stunt their growth. So they tend to focus on victimhood instead of the lessons learned. And many of their perspectives, many of their conclusions about what has happened in the past is colored through the lens that they really haven't contributed all that much to what they've experienced. I once heard a quote from Myron Golden that said that if you ever want to see someone who's miserable, just talk to a person who thinks that contributing factors are determining factors. And he further explains that determining factors are everything that have to do with you, and contributing factors are everything outside of you. I'm so glad that we're talking about cultivating a yes and talking about how to move from just acknowledgement to accountability today, because I think that it's really important for us to get this right so that we can start creating and living out the lives that God has intended and designed for his people. The final reason why I believe people are struggling with reflecting on their past decisions is because, and I kind of touched on this towards the end here, which is they're failing to realize their power. They forget that every day is a new opportunity to choose a new yes. And just like in the last episode where I shared the story about how I started off having a bad day when I first got this message about choosing your yes. It was me feeling like I was stuck in a vortex of what seemed to be like the start of a day that was just going to spiral out of control. And I am so glad that God really sent a wake up call to me to really bring to my attention how powerful it is to know that you have the power to choose your yes. With these reasons, it's important for us to highlight that just because these things are happening doesn't mean they have to continue to perpetuate, right? It's important to understand that just because someone is experiencing these results or they are failing, to take the lessons away from their past yeses, they don't have to continue down that path. Here are some of the risks or consequences of not including the lessons. And when you notice a friend or a loved one who is going down that path of not including their lessons, maybe you can bring some of these things to mind to help them to become more reflective and introspective. One of the consequences is you will continue to repeat the same mistakes. I cannot tell you how many times I have been on the phone with a girlfriend who is telling me about a situation with the same person that tends to play out time and time again. And there is no judgment here because, as you heard from the story that I shared in the beginning of this episode, I have done the same thing. But once you understand and once you start to see that, oh my gosh, I'm getting the same results, I'm getting the same experience, more likely than not, there is some type of frustration or agitation that is associated with these mistakes because you understand that you should not be experiencing what you're experiencing, or at least in your mind, that's how you view it, right? That I shouldn't be going through this. I keep going through this. And so it's almost as if God is sending you a very beautifully gift wrapped message to tell you, hey, this is something you need to pay attention to. Hey, there is something that you're saying yes to in this situation that you need to change so that you can stop getting these results. Another consequence that you'll find in not taking the lessons of your past yeses is staying stuck in unproductive cycles. So, something similar to having the same mistakes is unproductive cycles. And what I attribute to unproductive cycles is literally that feeling of being stuck in the same mundane thing. You set new goals, you set new aspirations, but you find that you're having such a hard time getting closer to what you've set before you. It's probably an indication that there is a misaligned yes somewhere in your process that needs to be reassessed or needs to be changed altogether. And then finally, one of the last things I want to share with you about the consequences of not taking your lessons from your previous yeses is missing opportunities that align with where God is moving you in purpose now. Anytime you stay stuck in an old iteration of yourself, whether that be from past behaviors or old identities, or as we're relating it to this series today, anytime you are still using a yes that is no longer aligned with who you are and where God is taking you to, you're going to find that you miss opportunities to move in alignment with what God has purposed for you. Anytime you are perpetuating not being reflective, not being introspective about your previous yeses, you're not just going to experience the consequences of those yeses, but you're also going to experience the frustration. And I believe that God is not in the spirit of making his children frustrated. But what he will do is he will allow you to have experiences and situations that bring to your attention the opportunity for you to change. And just for clarity purposes, here are some signs that someone isn't learning from their past yeses. You feel stuck in patterns, you are blaming others for your circumstances, and you tend to avoid reflection altogether because it tends to feel uncomfortable for you. Anytime that one of these three things are coming up for you or someone that you know, I would challenge you to invite them into being a little more reflective and introspective about how their yes may have contributed to the results that they're getting right now. And hey, if this resonates with you, I want to invite you to stick around. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode, and share this podcast with another woman of faith who might need encouragement. We're building a community of bold becomers here, and I'd love for you to be a part of it. As I stated when we first opened up with this episode, we are going to be diving into this portion of the SHINE method, which is include the lessons. And I believe that it's a very pivotal principle in the SHINE method when it comes to experiencing true transformation and growth in your becoming, because this is the place where we start to prepare ourselves almost in the sense of like tilling the ground or tilling the soil for growth in our lives, right? When we look at the title of this episode, Cultivating Your Yes, we have to understand that to cultivate means to improve by labor, care, or study. When we are implementing the I, which is include your lessons, the principle of the SHINE method, it gives us the opportunity to make small distinctions between the yeses of the past, to create new yeses, and then assess how those results are working for us or not working for us, so that we can continue to improve and develop as we move forward in who God is preparing us to become. Including the lessons is where you move beyond just acknowledging your past decisions to taking accountability for your roles and your actions. If the goal with including the lessons is to be more intentional about how you move forward, how can you use reflection to assess your past decisions without judgment? And so I'm going to give you some tools for that, because I know that introspection and reflection can be very vulnerable. It's hard to take a look at ourselves sometimes. Number one, it's important for you to shift your perspective. And the way that you do that is to start off by first practicing self-compassion for who you were when you made those decisions. I know for me, in different stages of my life, I made some choices that I would never even think about making at this stage of my life. But when I practice including the lessons from those stages of my life, I'm able to look at who I was then with a great deal of compassion, because that iteration of Cara, she was in a very different place than where I am now. And so it's important for you to do the same as you start to reflect and take the lessons away. Make sure you look through the lens of self-compassion for who you were at that time. Another way to shift your perspective is to be grateful for the lessons that you learned, knowing that everything that you've experienced up until this point has brought you here. I cannot say enough how grateful I am for every hardship, every headache, every heartache that I've experienced in my life up until this point, because it taught me a lesson that helped me to become the woman that I am now and set me on the path and the journey to who I am becoming. And so I have a couple of more things that I would love to share with you about helping you move from just acknowledgement to accountability. And that is asking yourself reflective questions. And the important thing about these questions is that they don't have to be answered immediately. They're just questions that you ask yourself and then allow the question to just sit in your mind and to germinate in your spirit as you go throughout the day or the weeks or even the months, to learn the answers to those questions to help you become more intentional about your yes. One of the questions that you can ask is, what did this past yes do for me? And why did it work at the time? As I stated before, when I look back on some of the decisions that I made in my early adulthood, I know that I was making those decisions from a very broken place. I was very hurt. I was very raw. At that time, I did not have the wisdom to ask deeper questions about the emotions I was experiencing. I just took the emotions and ran with them. And so as I look back on that version of myself, I can say, I understand why you made those decisions. I can see how you came to those conclusions and why you made the choices that you made in your yes. Another question that you can ask yourself and just reflect on is, what about that previous yes no longer works for me? And as you start answering this second reflective question, I promise you're going to get clearer and more intentional about the yeses that you give, simply because you're able to start identifying, hey, this isn't working and this is why it's not working. And it gives you space and permission to start seeking what does work and what does align for you. I have one more reflective question for you, and that is, how can I refine my yes to align with who I'm becoming? We have to understand that our yeses don't just impact us in the moment. They can have ripple effects that are lasting far beyond what our minds may even see in the present. But what I will say is that I believe God is drawing you and calling you to become. And as He gives you glimpses of who that person is, it's your responsibility not to make yourself grow into that person, but to start moving in the direction that aligns with who that person is. As He gives you insight and as He gives you glimpses, start asking yourself this last question: how can I refine my yes to align with who I am becoming? And start to see how God adds in abundance more growth, more wisdom to what you allow yourself to align with as He's leading and guiding you through this phase of your journey. Hey there, Bold Becomer. Are you ready to take the next step in your journey to embrace godly authenticity and truly shine? I'm thrilled to introduce my book, Discover the Path to Shine, your guide to uncovering the foundational principles that will transform your journey from the background to the forefront. This isn't just another book. It's a roadmap for recognizing and breaking free from behaviors and beliefs that may be holding you back. Whether you're navigating challenges or seeking clarity in your purpose, Discover the Path to Shine offers the tools and insights to help you align with who God has called you to be. So, if you're ready to step into the light and live with the boldness that you were created for, grab your copy today. Visit CaraJanaeShine.com/discover or check the link in the show notes to get started. It's your time to shine. Here are some steps to identify lessons from your past decisions. I want to encourage you to pay attention to your emotions. As I stated in the last segment, at the time, I didn't have wisdom to know that strong emotions are true indicators for you to lean in and to ask deeper questions to yourself. Ask yourself, what emotions do you want to avoid? And which ones do you want to cultivate? If you can start getting clearer about the emotions that you don't want to experience versus the ones that you do want to experience more, you can start getting clear about what you need to say yes to in order to get those results. Another actionable step that I would recommend is to listen to the Holy Spirit for nudges. And so one of the things that I try to practice and incorporate in the iteration or in the principle of including my lessons is praying and asking God to reveal insights about me to me. And so for you to incorporate this practice for yourself, I would encourage you to invite God to reveal insights about you to you and about your past choices. And just for reference, take a look at Psalm 139 and 23, because I believe that that is a beautiful way and a very simple prayer that you can say to get you going in your journey of becoming. As you incorporate those two practices, I would also give you some resources to use along with them. I believe that they will help you to start creating a more aligned yes. And one of those practices is journaling. Journaling is a wonderful resource for reflecting on lessons and identifying patterns. I cannot tell you how many times I've looked back at past journal entries and found wisdom there, or even noticed a pattern that I didn't realize I was starting to notice, and seeing how that development of noticing that pattern started to evolve as I continued journaling. I would invite you and encourage you today to do the same. Another thing is prayer. Ask for wisdom and clarity in aligning your yes with God's purpose. I believe that Jesus did a beautiful job of creating an example for us by stating, not my will, but yours be done, right? And making sure that as we are moving in purpose and as we are aligning our yes, we never want to discount the input and the counsel of God. He gives us understanding. He gives us wisdom and knowledge, but we don't lean to our own understanding. We always acknowledge Him in all of our ways. The third thing that I think will be resourceful to you is to seek wise counsel. And as you seek wise counsel, share some of the lessons that you've been noticing or taking away with a mentor or a coach or even a spiritual leader. and then ask them for guidance and maybe some other added wisdom or insight that they may have. With these practices, I believe that you will not only gain further clarity as you include your lessons, but you will start to also feel empowered to make sure that you are able to confidently create and cultivate a more aligned yes. And now that we have identified some practical ways to start moving from acknowledgement to accountability, it's time for us to take intentional action. So I want to encourage you to do what I'm going to call a lesson audit. And the way that you can do this is you're going to take a moment to write down 3 past decisions that were yeses that didn't quite align for you. And I want you to sit with them and start to identify at least one lesson that you learned from each decision. As you do that, I want you to also brainstorm about how those lessons can guide your future choices. As we've already stated, every experience is happening for you. If you truly believe Romans 8:28, all things are working together for good, then I know that you'll be able to glean at least one lesson from one of your past misaligned yeses. Here's the challenge for the week. Choose one area of your life where to apply a past lesson and take one small intentional step toward creating a new aligned yes. I believe that if you start implementing this practice of a lesson audit, you will start to see that there are so many lessons available to you that will help you move in the direction that God is leading you to in this next season of your life. And I would love to hear more about how this challenge goes for you. So if you haven't done it already, I'm inviting you to join us in the Bold Becomers Circle. It's a very special community that is created just for the listeners of this podcast who are serious about their becoming journeys. If you have not already joined us, you can go over to karajanaeshine.com/boldbecomers and sign up to join the community today. I am looking forward to seeing you over there, and I'm so looking forward to hearing about the goals and the accomplishments that you are able to get more aligned with from implementing these practices. We are coming to the end of this episode, and I want to just take a few moments to highlight some of the takeaways that we had for today. One of our key takeaways is that every past yes holds a lesson that can shape your future. And it's important for us to include those lessons so that they can help us to move from acknowledgement to accountability. Remember, in Romans 8:28, God uses all things for good. So your past decisions and even the misaligned ones are tools for growth and alignment with His purpose. I would love for you to share your reflections from your lesson audit on social media using the hashtag #CultivateYourYes. And I am really looking forward to next week's episode because we're going to be talking about how you can protect your yes as you navigate growth and stay aligned with your purpose. As we wrap up today's episode, I would love for you to take a moment to reflect on what we've learned. Cultivating your yes is about embracing the lessons of your past with grace, curiosity, and intention. It's not about judging yourself for the yeses that you gave before, but it's about learning from them and then using those lessons to move forward in alignment with who God is calling you to become. Remember this: every decision, every yes, it carries a lesson. And when you include those lessons, you move from acknowledgement, simply recognizing what happened, to accountability, where you can take ownership of your choices and the opportunities that God has placed before you. So let's revisit today's bold declaration together. I am cultivating my yes. I approach this daily opportunity and challenge with grace, curiosity, and patience. I am learning to incorporate intentional living by assessing how the yeses of yesterday impact my today and tomorrow. I am empowered by God to choose my yes with care, while learning to improve my yes as I take the lessons with me. As I integrate the lessons I've learned, I am creating a yes that is more attuned and aligned with what God has for my life. Today, I boldly declare, I am cultivating an elevated and aligned yes. Remember your challenge for this week, Bold Becomer. Take your lesson audit. Write down 3 past yeses that didn't align with your values or purpose, and identify 1 key lesson from each of those decisions. And then think about how you can apply that lesson to your future yeses. If this exercise brings up any new insights or breakthroughs, I would love to hear about it. Share your reflections with me on social media using the hashtag #CultivateYourYes and tag me at @CaraJanaeShine so that I can celebrate your growth with you. If this episode resonated with you, be sure to subscribe and leave a review, and share it with a friend who might need this message. Your support helps us to reach more bold becomers just like you. And don't forget to grab your free guide, Seeds to Grow Your Shine, for practical steps to live with intention. You can find it at carajanae.com/ready. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. And until next time, keep cultivating your yes, keep becoming, embrace godly authenticity, and live with shine. I'll see you in the next episode.